Hello friends, hope you're all doing fine, and today I'm going to talk about JSON Web Tokens, or JWTs, or JWTs for short. JWTs are an important aspect of web programming, specifically distributed computing that's backed by APIs and the API economy. They're an important cog in the wheel of API-based programming or API-backed applications. So as you see on my screen, I have a quick illustration in terms of what JSON Web Tokens are. They are tokens that specify a signature of a particular payload, and they are passed to the APIs as headers. We'll talk about the practical aspect of it in a minute, but I just want to understand and help you understand what a typical JSON Web Token consists of. So typical JSON Web Token consists of a base64 encoded header, as you see here, and then it's followed by the base64 encoded payload. The payload could be anything of your choice, and apparently it has to be something that makes sense for the other receiving party, so that it can take appropriate actions, whether to allow access to a resource or deny access to a resource. The actual signature itself, which is a kind of amalgamation of the payload, the header, and an HMAC of both those components with a secret that's predetermined by you. There are multiple algorithms that you can use to do the signing. One of them is HS256, which is obviously HMAC based. Other one is RS256, which is based in public-private key certificates. We'll look at the RS256 one a little later. First, we'll look at the HS256, which is the HMAC-based algorithm. So let's quickly head over to one of the interesting websites that we have here, which is the Jwt Dot Io. So if you look here, there is a debugger that they provide, and it essentially allows you to understand the components of a JWT token and how it's encoded, okay, and how it looks like when it's decoded, right? So if you look at it, the header is quite standard. ALG is HMAC256, HS256, and type is JWT. These are quite standard values in the header object. And then there is a payload, which is also quite standard. It uses some standard attributes here, but you can also have some custom attributes that could be of importance to your business or the use case that you are trying to address. And then there is the signature itself. If you look at it right now, it is actually showing the encoded signature on the left side, right? So if I change the payload to, let's say, to Jane Doe, you also see that token itself changes in terms of the payload as well as the associated signature, right? So it changed from, let's say, if I go back to John, you see that header remains the same, which is encapsulating the algorithm and the type. And then there is the payload, which is essentially having the name Jane Doe or John Doe, and then the subsequent signature that comes after the last dot. So all of them components are delimited by dots. So it's a compartmentalizing the components of the JWT token. The next question is, how can we do a few things programmatically, right? How do you actually, let's say, compose a web token, JSON web token, or assign a web token? And on the receiving side, how do you verify it's actually not necessarily compromised, right? Or it's carrying the information that it's supposed to be carrying as intended by the original sender, right? The recipient has to ascertain that. With that, what I will do is I'll quickly spin up a Node.js project. I will go to my Mobax terminal. So I'll just call it node-jwt, and I'll cd into it and make clear the screen. I'll spin up a new project accepting all the defaults with the -y flag. So this should quickly give me a scaffolding of the project, a bare bones project. So if I do an ls-ltr, just gives me a package.json. I'll open this in my favorite editor, which is VS Code. You could use any other editor as well. but VS Code has so many extensions and has a very rich ecosystem that you'll literally fall in love with it once you start using it. Okay, here is my project. I will close the Getting Started tab, and what I will do is I'll just open the command terminal and just to do my cleanup and all the housekeeping stuff. So over here for JSON Web Tokens, right, Node.js has certain packages in the npm repository which we can use, and one of them is the JSON Web Token, right? So I have this open here, and you can install this to essentially help you do a lot of the heavy lifting that happens behind the scenes when you use the JWTs, which is essentially signing a particular payload or verifying a particular payload, just to name a few. There are other things that also that I can do. What it says is that to sign a particular payload, you need the payload itself, you need to have a secret which is essentially decided by you and only known to you, and then the party you're trying to speak with, obviously. And in case of a HMAC based algorithm, it's going to be a shared secret, because if it's not shared, then the decoding is going to be failing. And if you look here, it gives you options to sign asynchronously, and there is also an asynchronous option. You could use both of them. And yes, and then you can also have additional headers in terms of let's say how much time it's gonna be alive or expires an option. And then of course the algorithm option itself, which is either HS256 or HS384. Okay, so let's quickly go over to the terminal. I will install npm install I JSON Web Token. I think it's going to take a bit of time, so I'll just pause here for a bit. Okay, we're back. So it was quite quick. It did not take much time, to be honest. If you go to the package.json, you can verify that, and it's been installed here. Okay, and now I will go to my root folder and create a new directory or folder called src. Under that, I will create a new file. So let's say I'll call it jwt-auth.js. Over here, what I want to do is I will take a payload and a secret, and then I'll try to sign that using the JSON Web Token libraries. And once it's signed, I will go back and then try to undo that, and when I verify that, it'll give me back the original payload. Okay, so coming back to this, so let me see what payload I should have. I'll just have a simple payload that says, message is equal to hi friends, and then I need my secret, constant secret is equal to, I'll choose a very simple secret, but in reality, it can be a lot more lengthy, also a little more complex, not as simple as this. Okay, but for our practical purposes, I'm choosing a simple one. And then I can use now to sign this particular payload with my secret. Okay, so what I will do is I will just try to sign this and store it in a variable called signed. So essentially JWT Dot sign, that's the method that I keep. I think some of it is also the autocomplete feature that's provided VS Code. So that takes the payload object, okay, as it mentions here, token string payload to sign, could be a literal buffer or string. So I will take the payload, which is the payload object itself, and then I will need the secret, okay, but I'll also need the additional object which specifies which is algorithm we'll try with HS256, then probably HS384 as well. So I'll save this. With this in place, let me see if I can actually console log what the signed variable has. So let me cd into this RC. Oh my goodness, I think it went into known modules. Okay, let me pull it back. So if I do dir now, it should have src. Let me cd into it. If I do a dir again, it should list my file. Okay, let me enlarge this a bit so it gives everybody a better view. I will hide my site pane as well. Now if I need to execute this, I'll just say node jwt auth.js. Okay, there you go. So it is actually printing the token here of our payload. Now next we'll go to try to verify this payload and see now if it is valid. What I'll do is const original payload is equal to jwt dot verify, and you need to verify the payload itself, which is signed, okay, and secret obviously, and of course the algorithm. I'll just specify the algorithm as H256 as we had done at the time of signing. Now let's print out the original payload. I'll just put in a new line to clear the screen again. Woohoo, there you go. So that was your original payload. As you can see here, this was your original payload, and that's what you get after verification, right? That's about it. I hope you enjoyed this. You can also use it with a different algorithm. So for example, you could change it to 384. Let me see if that works fine. It does. Okay. Not sure it also supports 512. We could try that. I'd like to think it does. It does. So this is just a quick intro to JWT and how typically information is, or rather the token is signed, verified, right? Using a simple secret, or it could be complex as well, but with HMAC based token. Okay, now the certificate signing. Certificate signing is a separate beast, so we'll take a look at it a little later.